Welcome to CPG Vibes. No script, just chat. We talk all things food and beverage and so much more. Feel our vibe and search for CPG Vibes on Apple Podcast or Spotify, and make sure to give us a 5-star review. If you'd like to sponsor our show with your product or service or be a guest, email us at cpgvibes100@gmail.com. Now your hosts, me, Alex Bear with Genius Juice, and Wade Yeti. All right, welcome to episode 110 of CPG Vibes, just like the freeway in LA that always has traffic through downtown LA. Wade, how you doing, buddy?
Alex, I think I've got about 50 windows open on my tabs open on my screen right here, so I'm doing
Sounds
good.
About right.
Yeah, I'm doing
and 49
good.
of those tabs are Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, right?
No, I think they're all of our guests who I'm sure we're going to talk to. This is kind of foreshadowing and segueing our guests' websites, our sponsor websites, all this good stuff. But I'm excited to be here for this. In your words, is it groundbreaking, historic, epic, just whatever episode we're calling this. I'm excited to be here. Every week's good, but this one's special, right?
Definitely special. For those that didn't catch the news, this is the Master Series episode. So we have no particular order. We have Rachel Robb. We have John Foraker. We also have Nick Mindel and also Chris Hunter, right? And we'll tell you the brands in a second. So yeah, a little nervous, I mean, this is a big show, right? This is a big show. A lot of people on, I think double, triple the amount. When we first posted about this episode, there was a comment that really stuck out to me, which is, this is like the 1992 NBA Olympic team, right? Like the dream team, right? So that's a pretty good comparison, but that's a pretty high bar, right?
The bar is very, very high, and I'm just going to preface that before we get too far into this that I already see my buddy Barton on here. He's joining us from Louisiana. We've got Adam Bremen, we've got Kenny, we've got all sorts of people out there. We appreciate you joining us. But before we get too far into it, Alex, we want to talk about the format of the show.
Yep.
The normal format of the show, what we do, so that those of you who are joining us for the first time, or maybe it's been a while since you joined, what we do and what we're going to do today, so that you are paying attention. So that, Alex, what will happen if they pay attention and are taking notes throughout the show?
Well, we're going to be giving out a prize at the very end of the show, which is from our sponsor, Waleed Nasruddin, and his consulting agency. And then he has actually a brand, and we're going to look at, because we prepare for nothing on the show. We're looking as we go.
Alex, I'm going to correct you because I am prepared for this. I've got him popped up, and I also have his brand popped up. I'm ready to roll. I'm not messing around this week.
Yeah. And I think we're also going to mention too that there might be a couple extra prizes as well, right, at the very end. So we're going to talk more about that. So there might be more than one prize, because when there's more people on, it's harder for one person to win. So why not have multiple prizes, right?
Exactly.
Share the love, right? It's like a lottery, except you actually have a chance of winning, right?
Exactly.
So that, and there it is. It is WN. It's basically it's Waleed Nasruddin Advisory, but the website is WNDEEN advisory.com. And also one of his brands, he's also sponsoring graciously, which is Soha Savory. And there's going to be a 4-pack variety giveaway. Now, as far as our ongoing sponsor, that is V-Driven. V-Driven is a master sales organization. They also do trade spend deduction. They have a ton in their a la carte menu that you can pick from with CPG services. And if you're a baby where literally you're just doing your first 10,000 in sales to KOIA, which is doing way more than that, and they're in Starbucks. They can help you from beginning, middle, or at the kind of mature stage of your business. Also, sponsorships we have. Again, we're going through this quick because we're going to leave us enough time for our guests and not blab too much, which I'm already doing. Sponsorships. We have block rates. One episode starts at $350 for a first time sponsorship. And if you do block rates, you can get up to 20 or 25% off. So make sure to reach out to cpgvibes100@gmail.com to find out more about sponsorships because, hey, the exposure is great. We're the #1 rated podcast in North America and also, I think, Brazil.
#1 CPG. CPG. We haven't. Yeah, exactly.
I forgot CPG. And I guess we're also ranked top 10 in random. We're in Brazil, Denmark. We've been rated highly in Europe for whatever reason. Random.
Well, and let's be honest, Alex. No one's really looking to see if we're telling the truth on that. We are the #1 rated CPG podcast, but rated. But as far as the rest of the stuff, we could be big in I don't know every country, right? And there's really no checks and balances here.
Just like a debate on television, no one fact checked. No one really bothers to fact check anything.
And let's not start that now.
Let's not start that. No, we don't want to tempt you to do that. And again, vdriven.com. That's our ongoing sponsor. And the gentleman's name is Luke Abbott, LUKE. .ABBOTT at vdriven.com. You're multitasking pretty well today.
Let's hope this continues because it's challenging, but I've got it so far so good.
It's the mud water from last week's episode, man. It's still
exactly
going on. It's still helping you. All right, so
the last laundry list item,
yes,
Alex, is to give us to go to Apple Podcasts and give us 5 stars. There's the link to the show. It costs you absolutely nothing. It takes 2 seconds. Click the link or put it in your phone. Search for Apple Podcasts. Type in CPG Vibes. Just give us 5 stars. It helps the algorithms, just like LinkedIn has its algorithms. iTunes and the podcast environment has its algorithms, and this helps Alex and I stay relevant, go up the charts, and it helps if you're searching for CPG. It helps us get a little bit more attention there. So if you could do that, that would be awesome. And if you steal your partner's phone, your children's phone, your neighbor's phone, your parents' phones, do it.
Cool. Yeah, I'm not hearing myself. I'm not hearing the audio right now. So Wade, why don't you take over? Let's see. I'm going to take this out.
There we go. I'm back, Alex. I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay. Where are we at? Are we ready to roll? Testing? Can you hear me? Testing.
Okay. Rachel, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Alex, I can't hear Alex. So, Alex, I had to go old school because I think the massive audience here killed some of our audio. So I'm going old school.
This is live. It's like live television. This is all live.
Now you're back. Now you're back. I'm going old school, Alex, so we can do this.
Let's do it.
All right. So we want to start with introducing our esteemed guests here because I think if we tried to do that previously, they didn't come on. And on my screen, on the top right, and ladies first, is Miss Rachel. Rachel, tell us about yourself and your company.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Robb. Am I echoing, or is that just me?
Yeah.
You're good.
All
You're
right.
good.
I'm Rachel Robb. I'm the EVP of Growth and Strategy at Critical Mass Group. We're a national broker out of Hermosa Beach, California. And I'm doing a fun fact, right?
Yep. So there's a little bit of feedback here. Go ahead and mute when you're not speaking. That should fix it. All right, much better. Okay, so we're going to go now to Chris. Hunter doesn't really need an explanation, but here he is.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Chris Hunter, co-founder and CEO of KOIA. And fun fact is I just published my first book called Blackout Punch.
Awesome. So what we'll do is there's still a lot of feedback. Make sure once you're done talking to mute yourself again. So it's kind of like a walkie-talkie, but Chris, we can hear you loud and clear. Blackout Punch, I got to buy that book. Is it on Amazon?
It's on Amazon, yep.
Love it, brother. All right. And then next we have, we're going to go in order here. So we have John Foraker with Once Upon a Farm. John, you have the floor.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on. I'm John, and I'm a co-founder and CEO of Once Upon a Farm, and we're a baby through kid nutrition company. And I'm excited to chat with all these awesome folks today. And the thing about me that no one really knows is I was a blackjack dealer in college. There you go.
Wow. We've really, you've doubled down on Once Upon a Farm. I can tell you that. It's a bad joke. All right, let's move on so no one remembers that joke. We're going to go to Nick Mindel. He is the managing partner over at Amberstone. I call Amberstone Ventures, but I see Amberstone. But tell us more about you and one interesting fact.
It was sort of like the Facebook. It was just better when it was Amberstone.
Right,
so,
right.
Shifted to that. Partner at Amberstone, $100 million emerging growth fund focused on fast-moving consumer goods, really kind of food, beverage, beauty, personal care, pets, babies, and household goods. Cool fact about me, I have been an avid fly fisherman since I was 6 years old.
Did not know that. Have you seen the little bit of feedback there? So have you seen the movie River Runs Through It?
Basically, like once every 6 months, I'll end up watching that.
Love it. Love it. Good stuff. All right.
So Alex, we missed Rachel's fun fact. So we got to go back to Rachel because we cut her off.
Go ahead.
Go.
Fun fact about me is I play a lot of stringed instruments: guitar, bass guitar, cello, viola, violin.
Very
Wish
cool.
I could play the harp, but I just can't. I haven't had one in front of me to be able to try.
Awesome stuff. This is really reminding me of, remember Clubhouse, right? That thing that was huge for about 3.5 months and everyone was texting you with an invite. I remember when we're on that, they made it a point where it's like you talk and you have to immediately mute. And if you're clapping for someone, you mute and unmute really fast. It was really, there's a reason why that's not successful anymore. All right. So we're going to go to just our first opening question. Again, thank you to everyone for kind of bearing with us with some of the audio technical difficulties. I think, Wade, this is a good reason to have a additional sponsors to increase, to really improve our software. So bugs don't happen.
Exactly. We've already ran into technical difficulties. We've overcome it. Are we ready to get this thing started? Let's talk about our first question. And I'm going to start again with Rachel because I'm not playing favorites here, guys, but she's right next to me. So I'm going to start with her. Rachel, post-Expo. Everybody's talking about Expo. We've seen the recaps. I think at this point we're 2 weeks out and everybody's just kind of like burnt out by it. But what was your ultimate return for you and Critical Mass? And did you get a return on investment? I mean, you guys had a fleet of people there, right? Was the money well spent? And what types of opportunities were created coming out of Expo for Critical Mass?
Absolutely. I'm not recovered yet. Today is like day 3 of me actually having a voice back. So, really the sea of blue vests definitely, was an investment, but it's paid itself off. We met with a lot of brands, saw a lot of innovation, and I have a tremendous amount of follow-ups and touch bases and get to knows with, probably about 100 brands. So lots of good things happening and exciting. And, Expo West is where all the magic happens, right?
I got a question on Expo West, and it's going to be, more of kind of an offshoot question. How many freaking people in this room actually made it to every single hall? And this is an open question, whether it's for Chris or for John or for Nick. I could not escape the North Hall, and I think I was in Hall E for a total of about 25 minutes. But anyone who wants to talk about that, where did you make it to at the show?
I mean, we just walked. We didn't exhibit it in a booth this year, and so I was trying to get everywhere. And the North Hall was a madhouse, as I'm sure you saw. I made it to two of the other halls briefly, but there's no chance I was getting to all those halls. It was crazy.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I noticed too, which was I think kind of a disservice to some brands, is there was North Hall level 1 and 2. Remember this? And then they were like, "Oh, we're North Hall level 3," but then I'm not an architect, but I didn't see a third floor at North Hall. That was the main hall on the third floor, overflow from the North Hall. So I didn't make it over there, but did anyone make it there?
No.
I didn't know that existed.
I made it. You got to go across the big sky bridge, like main hall to North Hall. And definitely some cool brands there.
Cool. Still some feedback. I think Wade, it might be yours. It is. Yep. It is Wade's. All right. So let's go into I'm going to focus this really towards John. Going, with Expo, you had a booth this year, right?
Yes, we did.
So what were your thoughts on the time, the money, just the staff, the cost, right? I know you're a bigger brand, over 100 million in revenue. What were your feelings this year on getting that return? What kind of actions you get from buyers? How did you feel about the return on investment this year versus previous years?
I think the return on investment is going to be really amazing this year. But I'll also say I think the last 3 or 4 years, it's been really strong for us too. And it's because we've got a brand of some size. We've got a lot of great innovation. We saw a lot of really good people, and it was just a great show. I know that it's a little bit alternate point of view. There's a lot of hating on Expo, but honestly, I've always thought that it's two things. One is the world's greatest sampling event. So if you've got a great product and you want 40 or 50,000 people to put it in their mouth, that's a great event. And number two, it is just an amazingly efficient place to see a lot of people. And then the return is all about what you do over the next 6 months to a year. But I think it's going to be great. And I thought this show was probably the best attended show. Number of retailers, depth of buyers and category managers that they brought, and intensity of interest and innovation that I've really ever seen, or at least seen for many years.
Got it. And makes sense. And going back to to Chris, I'm curious, right? And again, whatever you want to share, why did you not exhibit this year?
Yeah, after hearing John, I have a little FOMO. I don't know if every year we have gone and not exhibited, which has been since COVID. We have asked that exact question. Like, is it the right decision? Is it not? And to be honest, even before that, I remember thinking about Expo. I remember reading about Halo Top when it was in its prime, right? And they were not at Expo. And I remember reading about their perspective on it. We exhibited at Expo every year until COVID hit. And then we decided not to. And I guess our mentality has been, we have been able to get the meetings with the buyers pretty effectively throughout the year. We were not really able to schedule the meetings with the buyers at Expo. And so it kind of became a question of are we doing this for a vanity metric, or are we really getting a lot out of it? And I would say, opposite to John, we did not have a lot of innovation to launch this year. So a little bit different in that respect as well.
It's an interesting take on it. Yeah, because booths, they add value, right? And there's no doubt about that. There's a cost to it, but there's a presence there. And sometimes you just got to check that box and have a booth, right? Especially if people are coming by. But I love both sides of the perspective on this, from John to Chris, because two successful brands, one has a booth and one didn't, and you were still able to make rounds, see people, and you were more mobile. So I love that take on it. Let's go to Nick, and I know Wade's still working on his audio here. So I have no problem talking a lot more since Wade is not able to connect here.
I think I'm good, but I tried the old school mics. We're just gonna roll with it. We got this.
Okay. There's still some feedback, but we're just gonna roll with it. It never goes smoothly when it's this big of a show, right? Why would it go smooth? Nick, you've been you've been quiet for the last few minutes, right? You've been talking to other people. I want to get you in on this conversation. So you walked the show, right? I don't think you made it everywhere because it's impossible. What segments or categories in CPG really were you looking for at the show? What did you notice? Anything pique your interest? And then my follow-up question to that is, what are you just looking at in general right now for your fund?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. A lot of funds approach things differently. Some funds are category specific in how they look for different brands that they're looking for. I would say that we're much more generalist across the board. And so for us, it's less about specific categories and more about brands within categories that excite us. And so, really doing a lot of work behind the scenes before Expo even started to identify through a number of data resources that we utilize, what are brands that are just standing out in general, and then how do we get in front of them? And so, I'd say it was less about going out for specific categories and more about going out for specific brands that we wanted to be meeting with. In terms of trends that I was seeing, obviously probiotic, prebiotic beverages continue to be dominant. It's interesting that it almost seems that plant-based has been supplanted by regenerative and some format of changing kind of where your inputs are coming from and how they're grown. And I don't even know how many honey brands I saw. I thought that was probably like the craziest thing I saw. I think I probably counted like 16 different honey brands, but no, generally, that's how we approach Expo is much more targeted around specific brands that we want to meet with, not specific categories.
Right. And I'll definitely add, anyone can jump in at any time, right? This is no script, just chat. Is this whole thing with keto, this whole thing with, and I know it, just noticing KOIA's packaging, right? Removing the KOIA keto, the keto word, and rebranding it to be more aligned. I've been following your story for so long. But this whole low sugar thing, putting in a ton of stevia, monk fruit, that's still there. But, KOIA has some natural sugar plus a sweetener in there. I think that's becoming more popular now versus just having something that has zero sugar with a bunch of sweetener. I think people are coming back to sugar. People are coming back to bread. All these things that we deprived ourselves of for the last 5 or 6 years, we're now coming back to. So, Rachel, just to bring you in on this, at Expo, what was your schedule like? Did you see clients? Did you pick up new clients? Did you just want to see what was out there? Tell us your experience.
Yeah, my target this year was really just looking for what was out there and what categories that we want to, expand on. We're really looking to expand on food. As you guys know, we do a really good job with beverage and, have some awesome heavy hitters in that category. And as we've been expanding food, just kind of looking at what are the trends, what are the categories that we should be in, what's complementary to the rest of the items in our portfolio. And at the end of the day, for us, partnerships are about the brand and the people that are at the brand. So it was important for me to really just hone in, meet some people, kiss some babies, shake some hands, and really find the people that we want to work with. That's also paired with great brands.
From a data, and I think Wade, you're back online, right? Okay.
Yes. Yep. I'm back. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. And there's no feedback.
Wonderful. Well, I was going to say I'm unplugging. I'm doing all sorts of things, but
Woo!
Rachel confused me because I thought we were supposed to shake babies and kiss hands, but I might have messed that up a little bit. I might have messed that up a little bit. I was there. I was just there to rattle cages and work with Wade. #. But
I know.
I wanted to ask, and I don't know, let's go to Chris on this one, and maybe John after that. As far as were there any brands that surprised you and maybe exceeded your expectations? As far as the impression they made at the show and how they presented themselves, as far as what you saw.
Let's see. I mean, look, being honest, like as soon as I walked into the halls, I immediately was like, oh my God, look at all this exciting stuff, right? And like I was looking over here, looking over there, and feeling a little bit of like anxiety about all the things we should be doing as a brand, whether that was exhibiting or whether that was innovation. In terms of who stood out, I mean, look, there were a lot of great presence there, right? They're all the brands that you probably would think would have a big presence there, but for me it was really about how much there was a huge buzz there, as you all know, and it was exciting to be a part of it. And I had to anchor myself walking out of that show in the fact that 90% of what you see there never really sees the light of day. So I think it was awesome. I think it's very exciting. And there was a bit of FOMO while I was there. And then afterwards I was like, okay, keep focused and, do what you do. So.
Excellent. John, how about you?
Yeah, the honest answer is I was so busy at the show between we had a booth downstairs and then, Hall E. And then our pro tip is the last couple of years we've gotten a room on the top floor and we do private meetings up there. And what's cool about that is buyers will bring many of their partners with them. So sometimes we had like 10 or 15 category managers in a room, and not even covering some of our categories because they just wanted a quiet place to check their email and have a snack, whatever. So I honestly didn't get to see. This is the first time I've never really been able to watch the show. The only thing I did is I ran over to Hall A for a minute to snap a selfie with Hamdi from Chobani because I had to do that. But other than that, I didn't see anything, to be honest with you. I've been reading all the recaps.
The beauty of you sharing that pro tip is you just shared it with everybody here on the panel, as well as about 160 people of your closest friends live and in perpetuity forever. So I don't know if that pro tip, the rates on those rooms probably just escalated quite a bit, John. So
I just
New Hope is New Hope's like money off these rooms. So I wanted to also just really look at also just the smaller brands, right? And also just the struggle in general, right? I think this has been a very pertinent topic that we can all just relate to. What I noticed at Expo for the first time in maybe 2 years, 3 years, even post-COVID, is I was surprised at the amount of positivity, like Chris was saying, at the show. I mean, there's brands that probably used every last dollar they had to get their booth into that place and pay for a rental car to lug their product over. I mean, these are brands that are on the raggedy edge here financially, but despite the challenges from some of the, in the CPG industry, especially with smaller brands, people went to the show positive. We're going to make connections. We're going to grow our business. We're going to get out of this funk that's been happening the last 2 years with supply chain costs and difficulties and logistics. And so I felt there was a positive vibe there in general. And I'm sure you guys agree with that. It just, you feel it, all the posts on LinkedIn. So when it comes to small brands, what are some that you saw at the show that you're really cheering for? You're like, I know they're small, I know they're struggling, but I want to see this freaking brand make it. Like, can you think of any from all the booths that you saw, like a product that's so good, but they're underrepresented? So I'm gonna turn this one to Nick.
Can you define small first?
Yes, small would be sub 5 million in revenue.
Oh, sub 5 million in revenue. I mean, I talked to 42 brands and I don't think any of them were sub 5 million.
Let's go sub 10 million.
There was Laubon off the top of my head. I think just a phenomenal product. Incredible new introduction with the bows this year. Mm-hmm. Really great leadership. It's just a brand that's doing so many things right.
How do you spell it? How do you spell it?
Laoban.
Okay, I'm gonna look that up. Dumplings.
Yeah. Dumplings.
But I remember this brand.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's home run taste, and I think you got to get that right in consumer, and they crushed it. So definitely cheering for those guys. You know what, Mezcla too. Mezcla, the bar brand.
100%. Yeah, they're still like emerging. They raised that round, but they're still like small, but they're like on the precipice of a tipping point to like get into a major chain and like become a more mainstream brand. So Rachel, how about you? Any smaller brands, sub 10 million, or just like client or no client? You're just cheering for?
There were a lot, and I'm not going to name any specific that
Okay.
I would hurt any feelings, but I would say off the top of my head, and they're not my clients, just things that I tried. Dumpling Daughters was one, Painterland Sisters. I definitely liked Sobo Foods. There were so many that that's again what made it exciting at the end of the day. And like you said, the vibe was great. I felt like I was at a rave and everyone was on some type of drug, some happy drug, and we all got along and just tasted all the food. It was great. But yes, those were probably the three that top of mind. Evergreen, that was a good one too. So lots of great stuff happening.
Cool. All right, we're going to switch gears because we talked about Expo for about 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes plus. This is a question back to you, Rachel, so don't take too big of a swig of that water. What's the biggest, and this is a real hot topic issue, right? Where case by case, brands, they love brokers, brands have a great experience, bad experience. The broker doesn't like working with the brand, vice versa, or they love working with each other. It goes every way, right, in business. What's the biggest, I would say, or big misconception that brands have about brokers in general, and then how is this being solved, and how are you addressing this in your conversations with brands?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, some of the biggest misconceptions is that it is, can a brand just do it themselves? Right? At the end of the day, do they need to pay a percentage, a retainer, or can they just, manage to do it themselves? And I think at the end of the day, the way that I would describe it is a lot of the buyers, bless their souls, they are overwhelmed with their job, logistics, all the brands that they want to see, all the brands that they're maintaining. They just don't have as much time to kind of handhold a lot of the individual brands. And that's really where the broker relationships come into play. If a Whole Foods, a Sprouts, a Fresh Time, a Fresh Market, an Albertsons, a Kroger, if they have trusted broker partners that they're having, reoccurring calls with, that is kind of that platform that needs to be had. Whereas, brands, there's some of them and they do a great job, but on their own, right? But do they have that ongoing connectivity to be top of mind, day in and day out, every month throughout the year? Probably not. So at the end of the day, it's all about connectivity and those buyers having trusted partners to work with. Of course, it's a cost, but you get what you pay for at the end of the day. You also, I guess the other challenge would be a lot of people don't necessarily understand how an agency could have relationships across, different channels, different retailers, different divisions. But at the end of the day, you really want to partner with someone who is really evaluating the talent and the relationships and the reputations of everyone who is touching, not only my business as a brokerage, but also all of our brands that we represent. So
that's excellent. And I'll piggyback on that from the retail side real quick before I flip it over to our two founders here. Similar topic, but when you look at it, as Rachel said, a lot of times the buyers on this side, they're overwhelmed, and there's a little bit of you build that relationship, right? If you have a trusted broker partner, they actually almost do some vetting for the retailer, as far as bringing the right products to them and coaching the brand to say, hey, maybe this retailer isn't the one for you, but this one is, and so there's certainly a relationship on this side that makes a lot of sense in that broker relationship. But what I want to do, flipping it to John and Chris, on the same topic as far as brokers go, from the founder side, what learnings have you had as far as with brokers and building the relationship with your brokers and through your brokers with your retail partners. What learnings have you had? And John, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think we've used a number of brokers and have for a long time. And to me, the most important learning I have there is that you can't, as a founder, assume that the brokers are just going to make it all happen. You've got to be really clear about your strategic intent. What is it that you want to do? You've got to give clear direction for what's right for your business. You got to listen to the feedback you're getting from them. And then you also just can't constantly change things. It makes it very difficult for a broker to actually represent you well if you're constantly changing your priorities every 30 days. And by the way, I've done that. So I've made that mistake and recognized how stupid it is. So like try to be clear and try to pick partners that believe in you and grow the business together. I think they can be very essential if you find the right people.
Yeah, I want to jump into from the brand side, then we're going to flip it over to Chris, where brands also from the other side of the table, right? Brands need to be understanding and respectful of the fact that there is a review cycle, right? And so these larger chains, if you want to break into, let's say an Airwan, they don't have real formal review cycles. They just kind of review an item and they bring it in typically. Maybe they have some kind of, many times a year they review. But when you start going into the Walmarts of the world, the Krogers, the Albertsons, the Targets, the Costcos, Costco sometimes, they have set review calendars. And so I've seen it 1,000 times where the brand is like, what have you done lately? It's like, well, we can't really do too much because we're under the mercy of a review schedule. But what you're paying for is also the relationship the broker has with the retailer, making it a much easier and seamless transition. And also to get in for a meeting to present your product. The other thing that's kind of a lost art that that brokers are still doing is just submitting. I wouldn't say a lost art, but brands are not talking about it a lot. Is submitting the paperwork correctly. So when Genius Juice went into Costco, I mean, you've seen these buy docs, Chris, I'm sure, or John. They're not simple. And if you make one mistake and send it to the buyer, it could backlog you. I mean, they could either say, I'll see you next year, your pricing is wrong or whatever, or you put the wrong thing in, or you just ruin the relationship. So for more highly complicated retailers and club stores, it's great to have a broker to make sure you do not make mistakes on the paperwork and also the promo submissions as well. But Chris, going to you, what's been kind of your strategy with brokers? Have you maintained strong relationships with them?
Yeah, I mean, much like John, we've brought on brokers or worked with broker partners. We've engaged with them after we've opened retailers. We've engaged with them before to help get the meeting. Like I think broker is a broad term, right? It's just like the story about, the doctor that got a C in school. He's still a doctor, right? It's not every broker is created equal. There's going to be some that are really good and some that aren't, and some that fit and some that don't. I think for us, the biggest learning is to level set expectations at the beginning. And if they can't execute on what you expect, then it's not the right partnership for them or for you, right? I can tell you recently, I was blown away by a new partnership with a broker. They provided us a ton of insight and data prior to a meeting. They were outspoken advocates for a brand in the meeting. And that's amazing, right? Because sometimes you can get in there and they're a little bit torn because they represent maybe other brands in the space or other products, and they don't want to pitch against another, whatever it may be. So we were really excited about that. So helping prep for the meeting, helping provide data and insights. Definitely agree. The larger retailers kind of set up not only paperwork, but like what norms you expect in terms of like number of units in the store, each individual store, what the inventory levels of the DCs are. Like that's all really instrumental to the success of your product at retail. So, we really enjoy our broker relationships, but we evaluate them constantly. And if they don't make sense, we don't maintain them. And if we have a retailer that we think needs some support, we add that coverage. And that could be both from a headquarter paperwork or from a street level store visit, aspect.
Right. And it's interesting because one of my back in the, maybe 5 years ago, when running Genius Juice, one of my favorite brokers was a regional, like not a national. There's a great national brokers as well, but us, we're more of a regional brand. And so they didn't charge me. They only charged me for the business they got, right? It was like 5% or 4%, depending on the volume. And then a year into the relationship, they said, we just expanded. We hired more people. We're handling more brands. We have more overhead. We need to charge a flat, which you'll break the retainer, right? It's a flat. And then once you have enough sales, you'll just pay 5% off that. So and this is really it's a question for the room. What are your thoughts on, I think I know Rachel's thoughts on it, but what are your thoughts on paying for business that has been closed, right? Percentage versus a retainer up front while you're working to close these accounts. You can see it both ways, but Rachel, I want to turn this to you and see what your thoughts are, and what have you experienced from brands? What have been their feedback on the structures?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it done all ways. I've seen success and not success, right? At the end of the day, retainers make sense if you're getting what you're putting in and beyond. So for instance, there might be agencies that charge a retainer, and you might be on retainer for the next 3 years because that agency is okay with the retainer, and they're just going to kind of, do their business, and that's what their economics are. And then you're going to have, people who are charging retainers because you're a smaller new brand, and they're going to put a ton of work in, and, it just doesn't make sense going just a percentage only. But again, how long are you going to be on that retainer? I think the magic happens when you can actually see, when a brand is paying for a retainer and they can see their return on investment. And what I mean by that is you can see that entire sales force is becoming an extension of your team, a true partner. They're doing the paperwork, they're having the relationships. They're also leaning in when it comes to insights, analytics, what's going in the store, the mannerisms of the buyers, all of those things are really, really important. So, and I will say on top of that, you also want to look for an agency that is not looking just to charge that retainer. They want to get over it. They want to be excited and grow with you. Satisfaction of a retainer should not be what you're seeking out when you're looking for somebody. Usually the other thing I would say is, when it comes to retainers, again, it's not necessarily what you get for what you pay for, because there's a lot of big firms that are going to charge it regardless of your size. It is, what is the quality of what you're paying for? What is the quality of that team? What is the quality of the work that they perform? And how long do you see this retainer being of substance before you get over it, right? Yeah, and that's pretty much, a lot of brands, sometimes they're scared about retainers, especially in their early stages, because they just don't know, necessarily how the broker network works and how, the forecasting is going to look like, but there's easy ways to kind of sit down and look at category reviews, target those accounts like Air One that have the open reviews, and kind of, plan it out to show a client, especially in those early stages, what it's going to look like, how it's going to make sense, and how that retainer is eventually going to be something we laugh about a year and a half later.
That's great. There's a lot of talking points there. And I want to kind of pivot for a second off of that and stay on the relationship piece, but move it over to Nick and talk about from an investment perspective and relationships with your brands, and how do you build that relationship with your brands? How do you maintain it? And what are some of those best practices? Because right now, I mean, we all know the investment side is the money isn't as flowing freely as it did 2-3 years ago. So what are some things that from an investment perspective you're doing to build those brands, and what advice would you give brands to build a relationship with their investors?
Yeah, I mean, God, I've been doing this for 15 years now, and I've seen the pendulum swing in so many different directions, even though pendulum really only can go in 2 directions, but still, if it could. I think at this point, like, we've definitely shifted firmly back into building real businesses that have staying power, brands that can stand on their own 2 feet. And really, when we say that, we mean EBITDA positive businesses. When we do start speaking with a company, oftentimes it's maybe 2 years before they're ready for the type of capital that we can provide. And we do that purposefully, and that's to establish a relationship where we can begin to be a sounding board, be an advisor for those brands as they are scaling, and demonstrate that we bring more to the table than just capital. And so, for us, that's something that we personally do and take a great amount of pride in doing, is building those relationships. Post investment, it's about being communicative. It's about being open and transparent. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to have access to all of your data, all of your information. It's going to be an open book to us. And the more that you can be, I would say, kind of judgmental on yourself and open and honest about yourself and how you're operating the business, the better. I can tell you, I mean, we've seen brands that have, scaled incredibly well, very efficiently, have done all of the things right. And we've seen brands that have done so many different things wrong. Our reaction isn't going to change based on whether the brand is being successful or not. Our reaction changes based on how the founder interacts with us and how they speak openly, transparently, and honest with us. And our expectations is that they're honest with us about the good and the bad, because that's how we're most helpful, is being able to take the bad things in particular and address them head on and bring to bear our network and our expertise, and celebrate the good things. But it all comes down just to that open and honest relationship. That's how a relationship, or that's how that trust and that relationship's built.
Yeah, I definitely want to loop in John and Chris on this conversation, since they've mastered the art of relationship building in general in business, but also with investors. But one thing I think that I've noticed that's so great about Amberstone, even when we were pitching you way back in the day, like 5 years ago, so we've had so many conversations, and I've messaged Nick on this too, is that he is one of the most, and I guess I'll be careful how I say this. You don't want to get 1,000 messages, and I don't want to hype expectations, but if he's genuinely interested in you or the brand, wants to know more and wants to keep in touch, he'll give you the time of day. And he gave me the time of day so many times, like 5 times, 6 times, just with updates. And that's what I loved about talking with you and presenting Genius Juice to you back in the day, is you gave me the fair, equitable time to really tell you the story and tell you what was going on with the business. And a lot of investors are more like, don't bother me unless I really want to invest. I feel like investors that are more exploratory and curious and wanting to see what's out there and taking some chances and going into a category that maybe not be fully developed yet, or a company that's, trying to get drafted, right, to the New York Yankees, right? Like they're trying to go big time, taking a genuine interest in those brands and seeing the potential before it actually happens, I think is a magic that the great investors have. So flipping it over to Chris and to John, what's some advice, or what are some things you've done in your past when working with investors, building the relationship, and eventually working together? What has worked well?
You want to take it, John?
I know you go for it, Chris, and I'll jump behind you. Go ahead.
Okay. Look, we have a lot of investors in KOIA, and we've really enjoyed the relationship with all of them. I can tell you a couple things. Look, I didn't raise money in my prior venture, so I didn't really know how that would go. So it was a learning process. I can tell you, you kind of learn who you're going to be dealing with in the negotiation process, right? Not only in the early conversations, but even through the process of the paperwork. And so, don't expect that to change. And so one example I have, I won't name names, but we were really far down the discussion with one potential investor. And I met one of our new actual investors. And as a person, they were just great people. And so with the theory of you get who you're dealing with in the negotiation, we decided to pivot and go with this new investor. And we were really happy that we did so. I think from the investor's perspective, like there's a reasonable amount of expectation in terms of communication and like sharing. And then there's also sometimes where it just becomes creating more work, right? And so I think as from the founder side, we have to be very careful and cautious to set expectations about what we can do. Like we don't have a lot of time, right? None of us, a lot of extra time. And so we can't just accommodate, random requests or create more work for ourselves. And fortunately, none of our investors have asked that. They've actually been very supportive and always ask us what we can, what we need and what they can do to support. So I think just like any relationship, the early days are very important. You have to spend the time to get to know who you're going to be working with and make sure you're aligned, because that's not going to change in the future. Who they are, what they expect, or who you are and what you're willing to do or expect.
Yeah, John.
I agree with all that. I think my thoughts around the right investor relationship goes back to what was talked about earlier. It's all about trust and transparency, operational transparency. The way I think about it is, I don't want an investor who's gonna like high five and dance on top of a desk and put out a bunch of LinkedIn posts when something goes great. And I also don't want somebody who's gonna freak out when something goes bad. I want them to like be there in it with us, like understanding that this is early stage emerging brands are going to have great days and they're going to have friggin' horrible days. And there's going to be things that happen that you have to be able to work through. And I find the best investors are the ones that totally understand that, and then also have enough experience either in their fund or in the operating execs with the fund that they can actually help you solve those issues that are going to come up and help you think about them ahead of time. So it's a mutual respect is required and necessary. But character is revealed in adversity, not when things are going great. So you really need to like get to know them, to Chris's point, like really understand them. In fact, if you're thinking about one last thing, sorry to dominate here, but if you're thinking about talking investors and meeting somebody new, go talk to other people that they've worked with, especially when it hasn't gone well, and then you'll get a real sense for like how they really operate. And I think that's a very important angle to know about people.
Yeah, 100%. He hit the nail on the head, John, with that one. And the other thing, I'll add, I'm not going to try to one up you at all, because that's impossible from what you just said, is, it goes the other way around too, where investors can also ask, how was it, maybe an earlier investor, right? Or another venture capital that came into the company earlier. How was it working with them? Was the founder stubborn and wanting to do it their way and controlling everything? Or were they open-minded? And that goes a long way, where it's not like, if an entrepreneur is open-minded, the CEO, doesn't mean you have to take all the advice and do everything that people tell you to do. You can filter in what makes sense, but also recognizing that the investor has such tremendous value and experience working with so many brands that don't take their advice lightly. The advice may be great for the company. It may be not the right fit, but at least to listen, give the advice a time of day, see if it works for your company. And that also builds a stronger relationship when the entrepreneur, the CEO, president is listening to the investor and factoring in their advice. But I will say, though, the best investors also know when to hold them or fold them too, right? When to push and when to say, you know what, he or she knows what they're doing. I'm going to let them, create the magic and make it rain and all that, and just let them do what they do best, right? And unleash the beast, right? This is such a quick question because we're out of time, but I wanted to get to this. I'm super pumped to see KOIA at Starbucks, right? You've heard, you've gone into interviews, you've done podcasts, in like 1 or 2 minutes, which really is limiting, like with such a large chain. And I know Once Upon a Farm is also in major chains as well, like Target, but like getting a large chain like that to support it probably took 7 years, 8 years. Like they don't move fast at all, and they're very selective. What got their attention ultimately to like get you in the room with them? Or was it just over time from brand building? Like, tell us more.
No, so I mean, it was definitely not a spur of the moment idea. And I'll go back to the early days of KOIA. When KOIA was in its infant stages, it was called Raw Nature 5, and it actually had pea, rice, and hemp protein in it. And one of the reasons that we immediately revised that to remove hemp is that we knew that Starbucks would never agree to hemp protein, even though it obviously has nothing to do with THC, right? But we just wanted to remove all those barriers from the beginning. And then if you remember the Starbucks journey, there was a woman who was really playing point to get emerging brands in. Hippies was in, other brands were in around that time. And then Starbucks changed. She was no longer with the company. It was really hard to find anybody to even talk to. And going back to the investor alignment, we were always clear that we felt there was a very good fit for KOIA in coffee culture, and what better, partner in coffee culture than Starbucks. And so we made that clear and asked for years. And one day, one of the investors mentioned that they had, someone that we could talk to. And so we got an internal person to have a discussion with, and they helped us navigate. And we were really fortunate to be on the front end of what you now see in Starbucks is like kind of a reset of that cafe. Mm-hmm. And so I guess to answer your question directly, it was not a short process. It was not a linear, like the entrepreneurial journey in general never is, right? And it just took, consistent discussion and alignment on what we were trying to achieve, and patience. And then luckily they saw value in KOIA and took a chance on us. And so we're really excited to be in there. And I think what's been the most exciting about that, besides the exposure and the sales, is the creativity that's come from it. Maybe a month ago during National Protein Day, we talked to them and we realized that there was this viral trend happening called protein coffee. And it wasn't about our brand or about theirs. It was just something that was happening. And so we had our director of marketing bring it to our attention, and we brought it to their attention. We said, this could be a unique, cool opportunity to make coffee relevant on a day, or in our case, we tried to expand it to a week because why not go bigger, right? That it normally wouldn't be. And so they supported that idea, luckily. And we introduced this, social media concept of KOIA and Starbucks Profi. And I would say it went viral. It was over 1 million views within 24 hours. So it's been pretty exciting.
Yeah. And I'll say that when I went to my, and Southern California, right? Obviously, I went to the Starbucks near the Hermosa Pier, right? You probably know that one.
Yeah.
And I walked in, I was just walking by, and I think maybe 5 months ago, 6 months, I can't remember, but I saw it. I'm like, oh, they're doing a test in in the South Bay or something, Then I went to the one in Torrance on Hawthorne Boulevard and Torrance Boulevard. I'm like, oh, it's in Torrance too.
Yeah.
And then I was traveling up to like Portland. Oh, it's in Portland. I'm like, holy shit, I think it's national. So congratulations, my man.
You.
That's a huge win. So we're at near the end of our episode, and we're going to skip try anything, stuff we love. I don't think, Wade, we have enough time for that, right?
Well, do
you want to mention something real quick?
We don't have time, but I want to mention something real quick because I think he's in the audience, or at least he was earlier. My buddy Lex Evan over at Lexington Bakes sent me some of his, Alex, be jealous because you should be, his new, not yet released, vegan cosmic forest cookie. And I got these, and we need to do this now because these things aren't going to be here next week for the show. So look at this packaging. He sent me a 4-pack. Just everything he does is just top notch, top ingredients. I think these things, I don't know, they have to weigh like a pound each or half a pound. They're just spectacular.
They're dense.
He recommends to eat them chilled, which I have not done yet because he also said that I could try them warm for 15 seconds. So as soon as the box came in last night, I'm not waiting for them to get cold. I hit one in the microwave for 15 seconds, and my wife and I split one. And these other 3 are going to be gone before next week's episode. So Lex, another winner, no surprise. I see he's still on the show. Just great stuff. If you don't know Lex, you should. What he's doing is unique, top ingredients, and just a great guy. So thanks, Lex, for sending them. There's the link to his website. Go get you some.
That's how nice we are, right? Lexington Bakes, that's the name of it.
Yep.
Not a sponsor. We just love the product, and we're going to mention the product. Another one real quick is the Pop and Bottle Matcha Green Tea. I'm glad, we all know how hard refrigerated is, right? I mean, Chris, you made it work, but very few brands make it work like you've had. But Pop and Bottle came out with a shelf-stable can of their matcha green tea oat milk latte about 2-3 years ago, and I picked this up at Whole Foods, of course, on sale because I'm cheap. All right, so let's go into our next segment here. And before we do, we just got to mention also our sponsor. And remember, don't log off yet because we're not giving away just one prize. We're giving away three prizes. So we have obviously the prize from our sponsor, and I'm going to look him up here. Again, we don't prepare for anything, so we're terrible at this. But Waleed Nasruddin, he's a CPG operations advisor, seasoned operations leader, certified professional forecaster with over 15 years in the business operations field, specializing in demand planning, supply chain, all the things that cause headaches to founders, supply chain management, consumer goods for CPG brands. And it's called WN Dean Advisory. We just put that on there. And he's also co-sponsoring Soha Savory. And you can look him up on the website there. You can copy and paste that, Wade. So those are the two, the sponsors, right, for this show, the paying sponsors. And then we're also going to give away 2 other prizes as well. And those prizes are going to be KOIA and Once Upon a Farm. So we didn't let Chris and John know until literally right before airing that they were going to give away something, because that's how we do it on the show. So this is called Friday Freebies. And here we go.
Friday freebies.
All right. So we're going to come up with 3 questions. The first question, obviously, is going to be for Waleed Nasruddin, right? You're going to win this prize as a sponsor. And also the product, Soha Savory. Wade, did you look up this product?
I've got it. It's coming up right now.
They have 4 SKUs. They're going to give away all 4 SKUs, a 4-pack variety. But tell us more about the product.
1 second. There's the link. Okay, so the product, I just skipped out of it. 1 second. Let me go back to it. I'm gonna wing it. Right here. So this is just coming from. They brought Lebanese za'atar sumac. They've got 4 different flavors. They've got and this is what you're gonna get, a 4-pack of these. They're everything bagel oil. There's sumac dry.
Interesting.
There's za'atar sumac dry, and there's za'atar sumac oil. So just some interesting, very unique product. You're going to get all 4 of those. And then more importantly, probably if you're in the space, is the consultation with Waleed. And I had a chance to talk to him a little bit earlier today and catch up on what he does and learn a little bit more about his background. And I'm telling you, if you're in the space from an operational standpoint, from a supply chain, demand, forecasting, Waleed is the guy. And I'm not saying that because he paid us to say that. I'm saying that because he's genuine, down to earth, and he knows his business. So encourage you to reach out to him if you're in the space and that's something you're looking for as operational support. Waleed can help you out. So Alex, what question do we have?
Man, I was so enthralled by everything we talked about, but I'll do the first question, and then the other 2 we're going to give to Chris and John. But I'm going to make this simple because we're over time. Which Starbucks did I first find KOIA? Name the city, name the location. I said at the very end of this episode, so it should be easy. I'm not helping out. If you stayed on the entire time, I'm not rewarding you for that. It was the last 5 minutes. Chris, John, you'll probably need to come up with a question mentioned in the first 10 minutes to reward those people for staying on. So which Starbucks did I first discover? I already knew KOIA. First discovered them in Starbucks. Which one? A lot of people drinking around there too. That's a big clue, right, Chris? A lot of people are partying there. All right. So let's see. We got comments. There's a crap ton. Okay, so Hermosa Beach is the answer, and who said it first?
Oh,
I see Lindsay Gallion. She was the first.
Do you need me to go to
you know what? I think Allison Clay, according to LinkedIn, beat her out. So Allison Clay out in Florida, she got it. Hermosa Beach, right near the pier. All right. So putting you guys on the spot, John, I'm going to go to you first. What's a question, something to win and what would you like to put up as the prize from Once Upon a Farm?
Yeah, we'll put up a 24 pack plus
Wow.
more of all of our really newest stuff. We can just ship it to you DTC. So the question is, what was one of my main jobs in college?
That's a good one.
It is a good one.
I wish I could win that because my son loves your product. Loves it. He actually opens he's 16 months and he opens the fridge and he's like walking around. He's like it would be a perfect Instagram video for you guys.
Smart kid. What can you say?
Very smart. He gets the one with the avocado in it too for the brain health. He knows it. All right. So ask that question one more time, John.
Well, we got one answer. We got one answer.
Or there's already an answer.
I think it's in there. Yep.
There it is. Didn't even see it. A lack Jack dealer. That's not right, Michelle.
Well,
he didn't lack anything.
She answered right.
She did it right after. Okay.
Yep.
So Michelle, hopefully you have little ones, or even you can enjoy yourself, right? It's for anyone. Once Upon a Farm, 24 pack from John Foraker, the man himself. So Chris, for what are you putting up and what is the question?
We'll give away a variety pack of KOIA. I think we have 16 flavors now, so 16 bottles of KOIA. We'll ship it to you.
Wow.
And before I ask the question, I saw a comment here about the contrasting dynamics of refrigerated versus shelf stable, and I would love to have that conversation as well, to learn from John and to share some of my findings. So if you guys decide to do that, let me know. In terms of questions, so it's going to take a little thinking, I guess, but it shouldn't take too much. I didn't say this directly, but what is the fastest growing flavor of KOIA protein? And I'll give you a hint. I mentioned that we are ingrained or recently became ingrained in this particular culture.
Great question.
Nice.
I remember when I won't say anything. I don't want to give away any clue. I'm gonna zip.
While we're waiting, it was one of I think it was the fourth flavor that we ever introduced, and we were waiting for about 7 years for this product. We thought it would immediately become number one, and I don't know what the heck happened, but 6 months ago it became our fastest growing.
Yep. So it looks like this is it, right? Werner Forster, the coffee, the cold brew,
there
right?
You go. Yes.
Right on.
Yeah, that was kind of a sleeping giant to me. Like when it first came out, it I noticed it wasn't really a big mover, but then it just built over time, you know. And then the cold brew with a latte, that whole thing, like that took off. And cold brew and protein go together really well. A lot of people don't realize that, but it does. All right, so Wade, I guess that kind of we're going to mention our sponsors one more time here. Oh, and I can't hear anything again. So Wade, why don't you take it away?
V-Driven. We've got V-Driven. Luke Abbott is in the chat right now, and we want to thank them. We want to thank Waleed, and I put his link up just recently. And I think we need to go back around and maybe give some real quick closing comments from everybody.
Yes.
Rachel with Critical Mass. Rachel?
Great to be on the show. I was definitely nervous. You guys really hyped this up. So awesome to be with the rest of you talented individuals in our CPG industry. And thanks for having me.
Well, and I want to remind everybody that if it's the first time you've tuned in, or it's been a while, we do this every Friday. We don't always have this caliber of talent on
we're
the
definitely
show.
Me and you are not this caliber.
I was going to say usually it's just Alex and myself, but we like to think we have some good conversations, and it's really driven by the community, right? As far as the interactions we get from the audience throughout the week, we talk about relevant events in the space, and encourage you to stop back next Friday at 5:30. We won't have these wonderful people with us unless they're in the audience, but Alex and I will be here, and we'd love for you to join us each week. But I want to thank everybody for joining us again. And then Nick, tell us again.
Parting comments.
I mean, I just love the CPG community. It's so much fun to be here, and just so great to be on a show like this, learn from everybody. It's amazing. So thank you for organizing, to the two of you.
Awesome.
All right, John, parting comments.
Thank you. If I could give any advice to anybody out there to be successful, or at least to attempt to be successful in this industry, would be curious, growth mindset, always be learning. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And one thing I'm going to add, humble, because you are so damn humble, John. It's amazing. So more power to you. Chris.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone else mentioned, appreciate you guys having me on. Great to be on a panel with the rest of you, and I think it's great that you guys are doing this, because early in your CPG journey, it can be really tough to understand what to do, and so sharing on a platform like this, I think is pretty cool. So thanks for having me on, and thanks for doing what you guys are doing.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, yeah, thank you to everyone here, right, in the room for being a part of this, taking the time out of your day, be part of this epic, I'm still calling it epic because it is, episode, the Master Series. And we're going to have a volume 2. So this is a volume 1. This is not a one-time thing. We're going to have another one coming up in a couple months. We'll take a little bit of a break. Also want to remind everyone, and also thank you to our audience and the community, right, for me with record-breaking audience and the people that tuned into our show and all our fans and followers. So thank you so much for being a part of this and listening in, and congratulations to the winners. We really, from the bottom of our heart, me and Wade and everyone else here, we truly appreciate you for making the show what it is today, right? We're nothing without you guys and gals. On that note, community, we have a Slack channel now. So we have a CPG Vibes Slack channel, and I'm going to be posting it right now in the comments. I
Already beat you to it. It's there.
Beat me. Damn it.
Boom.
All right. So you got it. Boom. So make sure to join our Slack channel. We have information about sponsorships. We have information about how to help each other. We have the going live link, because some people are panicky trying to find that going live link. And also there's a work with Wade channel now as well.
There is. I've got 2 weeks left, guys, and then I'm unemployed. So make sure if you're interested in working with Wade, reach out to me. Let's have a chat.
That's what I was telling myself at Genius Juice every day. I have 2 weeks until I'm unemployed. So good seeing everyone. We'll see you next Friday at 2:30. Again, thank you to our sponsors, Waleed Nasruddin and also V Driven. And we will see you next week, same time, same place, Friday, 2:30, 5:30 Eastern. Again, thank you everyone here for being a guest, and everyone have a wonderful weekend.